Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I think we're ready to begin. My name is Scott McKinley, and this is Beth McKinley. And we really appreciate you all coming out to this evening because it's the first time we've brought together a big number of different groups. It's always been usually an individual speaker or just a wide open discussion, but this is more like a panel tonight. So it's going to be a little bit new for us, and this should be quite interesting.
Yeah, so when we hatched this idea of getting together with different organizations in town and asking them to come and share their projects, their goals, their visions, we reached out to a lot of people and had such an enthusiastic response. So we're really delighted that this is unfolding this evening. And so what you'll hear this evening is presentations from 4RGrandchildren, Inwendaamin Oki, Camp Kawartha, and YLS, and Greenzine, yes. And then finally, Sustainable Peterborough is unable to join us, but have sent along a written submission. Depending on time, I may be able to share that with you, or we'll post it on the 4RGrandchildren website. We have had so much interest in this collaboration that we had to spread this out over 2 meetings. So part 2 will happen on May the 13th. And then we'll hear from Kawartha Land Trust, Kawartha Lake Stewards Association, Kawartha World Issues Center, Green Up, Dorothy Taylor, and Sustainable Trent. So altogether, that's what, 11 different groups that will be represented from the Peterborough area. Some organizations have provided summary notes because there's going to be a lot of information this evening. You can always look on our 4RGrandchildren website probably tomorrow or the next day if you want to hear this recording, if you want to go back and catch details or names. But there'll be some summary notes also provided on the 4RGrandchildren website. And as we move through this presentation or presentations this evening, please feel free to post any links, resources in the chat that you would like to share.
You'll see there already. I posted links for 4RGrandchildren with the web page and the rest of it there. But at this point, we're going to turn it over to the Slavens, and they're going to offer a land acknowledgement.
I believe Linda's offering.
Is it Linda?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We say with much thank you to the Indigenous nations and peoples for welcoming settlers with friendship and for sharing this land with those of us who are newcomers. We all have obligations to First Nations as outlined in the treaties, specifically the Treaty 20 and the Williams Treaty, which govern this area. We acknowledge that these treaties, which are legal documents, have often been overlooked. We express our hope that they will be honored and that settlers will continue to learn more about the obligations embedded in these treaties so that we can move into the future in a new way. Beyond the settlers, the settlers have to think beyond the 96 recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Report. I think we settlers have to think in terms of financial remuneration to pay for centuries of abuse. So may we learn from those who are stewards of the lands and waters so that our grandchildren yet unborn, those to come in 7 generations' time, can enjoy peace and abundance, surrounded by healthy waters and ecosystems. And we thank the Mississauga and the Mississauga peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. You're going to hear more about our group. We usually start with an introduction of ourselves. You're going to hear more about that later on during the presentations. But I will remind everybody to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and the web page, and I have included those links in the chat. And you can find out about events, books, reviews, recordings of previous meets, and much, much more.
Okay, so we do have one announcement, maybe 2, so we can turn things over to Teresa Godden.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, So I just wanted to very quickly put the call out for an event that has just been approved, but we don't yet have a subcommittee for. It's about calling politicians and urging them to pass the Climate Aligned Finance Act. So if you haven't watched the 4RGMeets recording or didn't attend the January one that was on the Climate Aligned Finance Act, it's very informative, and it's basically calling on the government to use all legislative and regulatory tools at its disposal to align Canada's financial system with the Paris Agreement. So the presentation, the 4RGMeets presentation, was from Environmental Defense, a couple of their people, and they said that investing in a clean future should be easy for individuals. We shouldn't have to debate with our bank to find fossil-free investment solutions. That's why we're advocating for the federal government to pass policies that require all Canadian financial institutions to align their lending and investments with climate action. So I feel like this whole flow of money piece and what's being supported by the government and through banks and where incentives are going, that's like a key piece in the whole trajectory of the climate change picture. And it's kind of one that's difficult for people to address. So the Climate Aligned Finance Act really does address that. So this event idea is it's pretty simple. It's taking place outdoors in a public space where people go, like possibly a farmer's market or something like that, in the warmer months, and basically inviting people to step up and call a politician on the spot. And we would be providing some pre-written scripts, bullet points that are easy to follow. We would make it fun, having maybe some prizes, maybe a gong if somebody actually gets to talk to a real politician, having a visual display of what our impact is, the number of phone calls that have been made so far that day. So kind of just trying to remove the effort and intimidation that often prevents people from calling politicians, and taking that impactful step that's often more impactful than just petitions or postcards or emails. So that is the idea, and I'm hoping that there's some interest in some people who would like to help plan and carry out an event like that. There will be an email coming out either tonight or tomorrow, hopefully, that explains about the event and how to participate. Just reply to the email and express your interest, and then we'll go from there. And I'd also like to say to the collaborators who are speaking tonight, as well as the ones in May, if there's any interest there in joining in planning this type of event, or just putting it out to the people in your groups to invite them to come on that day, we'd be very happy to have those extra people coming out and supporting as well.
Thank you very much for that, Teresa. It sounds like a good event if we can get it to happen. So yes, anybody that's interested, please let us know.
Tonight, our first presenter is Guy Hanchet from 4RGrandchildren. A little bit about Guy. He's the founder and chair of the Peterborough chapter of 4RGrandchildren, as well as he's very involved in other local organizations. We don't have time to read his whole biography.
It's a book.
He's been involved in many climate actions, initiatives, and organizations here in the Peterborough-Nogojiwanong area, in Toronto, in Ottawa, including speaking to 25,000 people, where he was the lead-up act to David Suzuki, and I'm pretty sure that Guy would have upstaged David Suzuki. He is tireless in his work to collaborate, to inspire, to take effective climate action, wanting to be able to tell his grandchildren that he did everything he could. So we'll pass things over to you, Guy, to tell us about 4RGrandchildren.
I'm just going to talk very briefly about 4RGrandchildren here, and I'll just say that when I was traveling in Ireland, not Ireland, in Wales, I ran into I had a meeting with the Welsh climate change commissioner, and I told him what we were doing, and he was sort of interested in doing something like that there. And he said to me, "Your mission is to inform, motivate, and mobilize." And he just boiled it down to those three words, and those three words really are essentially what we try to do: inform, motivate, and mobilize. And we keep thinking people must be informed by now, but they're not. And motivation, all the people on this call are motivated. And mobilize, well, you just heard something about that from Teresa. We're going to mobilize people to go and call their politicians. But when we had a strategic planning session about 3 years ago with our organization, one of the factors that came out as highly important for us was collaboration. And our mission statement on our website says, we are going to collaborate effectively with like-minded community organizations. And that's the other people who are on this, other organizations who are on this call. And we've had that as our mission, but we haven't really, I don't think, kind of embraced it and taken the necessary steps to make it happen. So our collaboration is mostly local, but we also collaborate federally with a couple of organizations and provincially with other sort of similar organizations that are similar to ours. Our structure is, we've got volunteers. We have a board of directors, which has 14 members on it. We have committees that actually do the work. We have 115 members, and those are the people who've signed up to be members, and they're not necessarily members of the board of directors, but they're the people who are in the background, sometimes organizing things. And you know how these organizations work. There's the core, and then there's people who do a little bit more. And then there's the people who are willing to show up at an event and put up chairs and stuff like that. We've got all of those things, and 110 or 115 of them are members. The kinds of things that we do are the one that Teresa just talked about, which is a public meetings where people are just going to get together and take action. We have these 4RGMeets, which is the invention of Scott and Beth to get us through the beginnings of COVID, where nobody could meet in person. And so this was something that they put together really to get us through that. And it's been so popular and so helpful that we've continued it on after COVID is, I don't want to say it's over, but under control. We have the most active committee that we have in For Our Grandchildren is political. And the political action team has teams for each of the townships plus the city. We all have our specialties to go and talk to the municipalities about whatever is appropriate there, to talk to the politicians who are in there, and we keep track of what's going to happen at council meetings, and we show up if there's something that's important. We also have in the past, and we continue to do this, lobbied with our provincial MPP and our federal MP. And we don't have meetings with them very often, but we do talk to them and we say what we want, and we try to convince them that they should take more action on climate change. Well, we have a website which has recently added, we try to keep as many as possible of hopeful stories of what other people are doing in the world that can work, that can give us inspiration and make us realize that there's possibilities of things that we can do here. Outrageous stories, which are, like, oh, the provincial government of Ontario has just done something bad. It doesn't ever happen. It's sort of a theoretical story, but it could happen. Local stories, we've started adding local stories of people who have taken personal action to combat climate change. Recent examples of that are somebody putting a solar panel on their house. We had somebody putting in a heat pump, and we just put a little story that says, this is what has happened and this is what you can do. We promote current actions, again, through the website, such as petitions and letters. And we do publish on our website a link to the public calendar of other events which are climate change related. And we don't actually host that, but we put a link to the local public calendar, which is out there. And I encourage everybody to try to use that. We have a newsletter that goes out once a month to about somewhere over 1,000 subscribers, 1,100 or something like that. And we have 115 members who are a little bit more close to home. We have, I think Scott mentioned social media. We have a Facebook group, a Facebook page, and an Instagram page, and we keep all those, we populate those with recent stories. Our accomplishments in 2023, the Political Action Committee, especially Mark Bullock, put together a municipal report card of of a report of the actions that Peterborough City Council had taken that were appropriate. It was pretty bad. They effectively failed. They failed Mark's assessment, our assessment of what they've done. It's not that they've done nothing; it's just not nearly enough. An example of an event that we've held was last year in Bridge North. We held something called the Home Energy Expo, at which we had installers, we had Green Up, we had people who have installed heat pumps and had at that time gone through the Greener Homes grant, and we had people who had done it who were there, and we had about 100 people show up. Many of them left after that saying, oh, finally, I actually got to talk to a person. I didn't have to talk to a website or somebody on a telephone. We've had several street demonstrations, and last year we had, we didn't do it. It was Glenn Caritas who did it. He did a ride for the grandchildren and donated all the proceeds for our grandchildren after riding 280 kilometers in a day with his friend Nick. And we need help, but I'm not going to go through that right now. And I can provide help. We can provide help with all the groups who are here by participating in your events and by contributing to publicity for your events and the things that you're going to do.
Good group. I should join it. Yeah.
I didn't even mention that we have lots of fun.
We do,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
I love that about our group. Okay, so before we move on to the next group, is there anyone that has any questions,
Just
comments?
1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
Okay, our second presentation will be Matt Dutry and Kelly McDowell, and they are from a group, Inwendaamin Oki, which it translated is How We Are Related to the Land. So I'll tell you a little bit about them. Kelly McDowell is an herbalist of Afro-Indigenous Welsh ancestry who practices in the Mississauga territory, Peterborough, where she co-founded and coordinates the Peterborough Community Medicine Garden. So the Peterborough Community Medicine Garden stewards 2 gardens, one located within the Trent Vegetable Gardens and the second at the Hutchinson's House Living Museum. And the purpose of the Community Medicine Gardens is to bring ancestral wisdom of the plant world back into the commons. She is also a co-founder and a member of Inwendaamin Oki. And Matt, he will be presenting with her. He is a researcher. He's an action-oriented community builder whose specialty is cultivating connections through civic engagement, leading edge knowledge sharing, and interpersonal relationship building across diverse networks. Well, it's a perfect place for you to be. A team player with a passion for forming healthy communities. His efforts aggregate wide-reaching, dynamic information and organize it into high-level overviews that result in increased information transparency and more comprehensive planning processes. So Matt and Kelly, if you'd like to unmute yourselves, and we'll pass things over to you.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Dorothy Taylor sends her regrets. She was going to be presenting with Matt this evening, and she called me and asked if I could step in. So I won't be speaking very long since I haven't really prepared anything, but Matt has prepared a lot of wonderful slides. But Dorothy asked me to present and talk a little bit about the origins of our initiative. And the origins were Matt and I grieving in the garden in 2020, when the Trent Lands Plan was they were beginning public consultations and they were beginning sort of the process for approving the plans. We learned that there was a road that was going to be built through the gardens that we were cultivating. And as you can imagine, we were quite distraught. And so grief turned into anger, and anger turned into action. And we connected with the coordinator of the traditional medicine gardens down in the traditional areas at Trent University. The keeper at the time was Shauna Red Sky. And together, Matt, I, and Shauna started dreaming of ways in which we could protect these lands. We connected with Dorothy, and Dorothy was connected to many other initiatives that had gone on, including the Twin Pad, the opposition to the Twin Pad at Trent Lands. And so we started having roots in and building on the activism that had the history of activism that's been going on at Trent. After that, we connected with the Trent, with the Seasoned Spoon, the coordinators and the board of the Trent Vegetable Gardens, OPERG, the Trent Apiary, the Trent Students Association, and the Oxfam Peterborough group that also cultivate the lands up there. And we've been working for the last 4 years and have done lots of relationship building and lots of community activities that I'll pass on to Matt to present to you all. But thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you. I echo Kelly's statements for having us here. Yeah, just to raise awareness about our group's activities. And as Kelly had mentioned, there's a bit of precursor community involvement to the inception of Inwendaamin Oki. And that had to do with the costly and failed Twin Pad Arena development. So this was between 2015 and 2019, where I think you'll hear Dorothy speak a little bit more about the Sacred Water Circle that took a lot of action within the community amongst many community members to oppose the development of this over what was an unevaluated wetland at Trent University, later to be found provincially significant. And so, as Kelly mentioned, our entry point into this work was through the gardens. So after that Twin Pad Arena development was overturned, Trent unveiled its plans for the Trent Lands and Nature Areas Plan. Essentially, it's a campus master plan and guidance framework for all current and future developments on Trent Lands. And what we discovered in that plan was part of the Clean Tech Commons master plan, which showed the roadway that was going to develop through the then 15-year-old Trent Vegetable Gardens, which is student and community-led space. So I've highlighted some of the areas of impact there. So we connected as a community to bring awareness to the lands and both celebrate the living rich diversity that is there, but also to protect some of these significant sites of importance. And so some of our events so far, we've held, well, I want to say we actually lead from a place of spirit and community. So we do have sunrise ceremonies that have been led by elders such as Elder Dorothy Taylor, as well as a water ceremony that we also had, sweet water. And we also have put out a call out for submissions to a booklet that we're curating that really draws in the connections, the many photographs and stories of our community's connection to the Trent Lands and Waters. So we're moving forward with that, looking to put that into print alongside some potential tours of the Trent Lands. Those are our long-term visions. So we begin to connect community to these places. as well. Another initiative that's underway is a possible mural on the Seasoned Spoons root cellar. And so we'll be putting out a call out. We've been waiting for the bureaucracy to clear the air on their quote unquote no mural policy. So hopefully that can begin to be untangled. And the other part of this, beyond our events and bringing community connection, is to draw attention to Trent University's guidelines. And so within their own planning guidelines, they have a specific section called the campus development process. And that's where groups like ours and yourselves can insert ourselves with our concerns over the lands and waters. And so as it says here, as part of the development process, the community will be engaged at key points in realizing the plan by providing input at the visioning and design stage. And so that's where we're showing up or planning to. They're not really actively cultivating this consultation, but as these are, I guess, new guidelines for them and our community, we can begin to draw together and really hold the university accountable to both our community and their guidelines. So I think that's probably our time, and we'll pause there. Any questions? Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt and Kelly. Where is the best way of following what you folks are doing? Are you like, is Instagram the place to follow you, or do you have I don't know, Facebook page or web page?
We don't. That's on our to-do list.
That's where you need some help.
We do have an email. I forgot to mention our unity statement. And our unity statement is: we are Trent students, staff, alumni, and community members who love this place known as the Trent lands, air, and waters. Together we celebrate and strive to protect the living landscape to which we belong and are related. And our email is inwendaamin.oki@gmail.com.
Okay, can I ask either of you to pop that into the chat for us? Yeah, because I'd love to connect with you over some of the ceremonies, especially, but also just to keep in touch with what you're doing and how you need the community to support you. And that's been one of the places where our grandchildren has needed help, is social media. We're working on it, but it takes time. Okay, thank you so much.
Rosemary.
I just want to thank Matt and Kelly for all that information, and maybe to point out that this may be a really auspicious time for your activity and our cooperation, because the new president of Trent is Kathy Bruce, has committed to links with the community, and she practices them. And then the vice president, Julie, has made really good progress with Indigenous relations and the establishment of the new 6th College of Trent. So I just offer those signs of hope for new relationships that will give the lead to you to develop.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Why don't we pop over to Greenzine? Patricia, Remy, and Cheryl Lyon.
Okay.
Can we pass things over to the two of you and ask you if you would like to introduce yourselves, Patricia and Cheryl, and take it away.
Patricia and I work on the Greenzine magazine, which has been around since over 10 years. And it's going to be explained in the presentation. And I think that's all we need to say. And do you want me to go ahead? Okay. The transition movement, the Greenzine is grounded in what's called the worldwide transition movement. And that movement believes in hyper-local, practical, community-based action for the planet, respecting planet limits, localizing all responses to the climate crisis, and to not just talk about our future, but to practice it. Next slide. The Greenzine has supported the phasing out of fossil fuels and the transition to renewables since we started in 2007. And that little leaf with the oil on the right and the green leaf, or on the left and the green leaf on the right, symbolizes that transition. Next slide. Where else do we live but in community? And that's where we are at home. And so go local remains a core conviction of the Greenzine. It's that shift from me to we in our responses to the climate emergency. Next slide. Developing a readership for the Greenzine is a means of generating a sense of community, just in all the ways that For Our Grandchildren does. And it's almost a prerequisite of any kind of social change to have a medium of communication, like a local newspaper. We are the climate crisis local newspaper, and we're always looking for local stories and angles and contributors. Next slide. We all probably are of an age to remember this, and it was the motto for a long time. And as important as these words are for the movement, it has to go further than that now. Now we must address the deep wrongs underneath those 3 R's. We have to stop producing and consuming so much. We have to refigure our whole economy. We have to rethink our cities as well as our values and our assumptions. Much more than that little innocent circle. Next slide. So here we are building up the local economy by making local sustainable businesses known to the readership. And that was the advertising that supported our magazine for a long time. And this lovely graphic shows how everything's connected to everything, and tinkering with it without a holistic, integrated thinking behind it does nothing to rebalance the whole system. Next slide. So for instance, some of the practical activities that Transition Town did over those years was, for instance, the Local Food Month. It put local food on the map, as it were, along with the Purple Onion Festival held during September, and a local printed food guide. And so when we support local food, plant backyards, raise chickens, use less fossil fuel in the transport of our food, we are helping to reduce greenhouse gases and create a better world adapted to climate change. Next slide. We write about everything in the Greenzine, and this is one example from 2014. We wrote about the drinking water intake plant at the zoo. How many people know about that? And people were interested in the quality of Peterborough water at the time and about protecting our natural watershed. So that's something that works into being a resilient community in climate change. Next slide. We, as does 4RG and most everyone online, we support renewable energy, promote electrified public transit, encourage the city to active transportation, more cycle paths, and to support EVs. And all of these climate adaptation and mitigation measures are featured in our publication as a showcase for our community. And this is where we pretty much stand alone in connecting nuclear energy to climate change. Of course, CARN and the Ontario Clean Alliance have done that, but locally, along with CARN, we do put a focus on the role of nuclear in climate change. I'm going to invite you just to read this slide in silence. And I'll just add that one of the hardest parts of climate breakdown is its effect on our spirits. it can cause our spirits and our hearts to break down too. So the Greenzine has added a category of writing called reflections to open up the emotional side of what's often not accounted for in this crisis. Next slide. The Greenzine was so local that we depended on local small business advertisers advertising. They would place ads, which we charged a modest amount for. And that's what actually paid for the publication of the magazine. And of course, the pandemic really ended that. It was almost impossible for them to afford that extra advertising. Next slide. And that's part of the grief that many climate activists are carrying. During the pandemic, we drifted apart, and we now feel the need for consolidation or for building new coalitions like the one we're experiencing tonight, and focus on action. And the Greenzine wishes to be the forum in which various climate action groups in Peterborough can exchange views, inform the public, and invite newcomers. So the question our generation is asking is, how can we support them as those who will have to live with climate change? Challenges are everywhere. Even David Attenborough and David Suzuki are appearing a little more pessimistic these days. So the emotional and personal side of grief can be softened in time by finding new tasks, new coalitions like this, coming together in groups like this, and getting on with the life that we have to live from now on. And the question posed here in the face of Suzuki and Attenborough and even Rachel Carson, what will Homo sapiens' legacy for the Earth be? The Greenzine Editorial Collective invites you to join the conversation towards a more resilient community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cheryl and Patricia. Yeah, your vision of using Greenzine as a way for this next step of collaboration to happen is really important. I keep running into people and chatting with people in town, and the conversation is always, oh, we're all trying to do the same thing. And so hopefully we can use what we're learning tonight, use the Greenzine, and work together. But also, I find when I'm feeling a bit disheartened, a lot disheartened, it really helps me to know that all of the rest of you are out there, working on such a good project, and I'd rather be working on this than not. Any comments? Okay, someone's asking for the email.
I'll put it in. Patricia, could you put that in the chat? I'm answering another one here.
Yeah. So Cam, over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks. And what a wonderful idea to pull all of these initiatives together. And I want to echo earlier thought here, just by looking at the screen here and seeing so many familiar, but also importantly, some new faces for me really is really critical, because this is such a all hands on deck sort of a challenge we've got here. So I didn't have my bio together in time. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. I have a background in environmental engineering, environmental planning, and more recently teaching. The last 20 years of which have been in the KPR, locally in the KPR board. And the program I'm going to talk to you about tonight, Youth Leadership and Sustainability, I founded back, well, really 2017 with the first intake in 2018. So if you do the math, we're heading into our 7th year in September. So beyond that, though, I've been active in some climate initiatives, in the transportation part of the first city's climate action plan. I stay pretty active on transportation issues, and I have to say, as we soldier through this, we tend to find these issues, we tend to find more defeats perhaps than successes. But I was so fortunate to be able to play a lead role in the Peterborough Green Space Coalition that successfully put to rest the city's efforts to pave over our Parkway corridor. I've been active with cycling advocacy. It's sort of a passion of mine at the city level, and presently one of the members of the community working group of the now ongoing Peterborough Climate Action Plan update. It's nice to see Guy in that meeting a couple of weeks ago. So I can speak to that just briefly. at the end. But I want to share with you, my presentation is visual. I'm going to move very quickly through some slides. I want you to just get a sense of what it looks like to have a bunch of young people engaged in climate action. Right, youth leadership and sustainability. So it's a KPR program, and I am a KPR teacher, but you'll see in a moment, strong partnership with Trent, and would not have got off the ground without the help of the Kawartha World Issues Center at the beginning. I want to just start with this slide here. It's a little collage I put together, and as many of you or all of you would as well, I worry so much about what our young people lie in bed thinking about at night. And is this the collage of their planet that, well, it must be for so many of them if they're paying attention. I just put these images together. This is 6 months of British Columbia a couple of years ago. You might recognize between forest fires, temperatures, and flooding. And I worry so much about how they absorb those ideas. And I know from my teaching that they are engaged, they care, they want to do something, but so often aren't given that opportunity. And that was the starting point for this YLS program. Some of you will know Malaika Collette from previous meetings, and Malaika participated along with Phoebe Thompson, pictured here, in COP26. And I want you to just take a moment to read what a little excerpt from Phoebe's presentation at the climate education plenary. Phoebe, I think, was 20 when she shared those words. And this really captures, I think, the driving point for the YLS program. But it's also important, I think we all understand here, that you're not really going to stand up to protect something you don't love. So part of the YLS program is to get the kids out onto the land to create that crucial engagement on the land. So they have that fire in their belly when they move forward, as so beautifully put by Baba Diom here. I'm going to steal this from Jacob, probably just as well he didn't go before me. I think this is his quote, or at least I've got it from him. This is certainly an expression, you've seen this before, but I think this is equally relevant at this point, and this is kind of where I come in with this project. So, you know, I showed you the collage earlier, and I certainly appreciate that 4RG pays equal attention, or perhaps more attention, to looking at solutions and reminding us that we are actually moving forward on many of these issues, not fast enough, but indeed we have to take stock. So big focus on solutions in the class, whether it's renewable energy or Singapore in the top right corner there, bringing biodiversity back into the urban space. Bottom left, that's Copenhagen's Amagabaka waste management plant, where it's district heating, district electricity, and the ski hill to boot. And the bottom right there, that's just one of the upcoming electric vehicles that charges itself through solar energy. So we spend some time looking at solutions, but let's just have a quick peek at what we're trying to do. And this slide kind of captures, I think, the real thrust of the program. And I think, Guy, you had some other words that got to the same issues here, but ultimately channeling the youth concern for their planet and their unbelievable passion and energy and creativity into ways that allow them to play leadership roles in protecting their planet. So they need to understand the challenges. They need to know what some of the solutions look like. They need to know where they can access the levers of power. They need to have opportunities to practice those skills and then ultimately put those skills into practice. Certainly, you know, a colonial system has got us into this mess, and I'm not so sure that a colonial response by itself is going to get out of this mess. So we look at sort of two-eyed seeing, it's sometimes referred to as Indigenous worldviews, trying to figure out how we can bring that into our mainstream decision-making to move forward. The YLS program engages grade 11 and 12 students from around the planet. I was realizing I'm kind of got ahead of myself. I never really told you who's even part of this. Grade 11 and 12 students from around the region. And they are, of course, not so far out of post-secondary. So as we move through our semester, always looking at career paths and engaging with the leaders that we meet. And really trying to make this, at the end of the day, appreciate some of your comments there, Cheryl, about how we engage with this emotionally. and it's pretty heavy lifting. So we really make sure that we take time to have fun along the way. And that's how, you know, young activists will stay and grow into older activists. So at a glance here, I'm not going to go into the details. It's 1 semester, 4 credits. Some of you might be a couple of years out of high school, but there it is. It's called integrated curriculum. I have the students from September to the end of January, taking 4 credits full time from 8:30 till 2:30. A mix of sort of larger issues, hands-on issues. You can see the 3rd course there is where we develop the leadership skills, and then they pick up a core subject of English as well. Those of you who know about the program know that we're based at Trent University, where our classroom is, even though it's a KPR program. So it's high school students taking high school credits from a high school teacher at Trent University. Beautiful place to teach high school. We have the run of the campus. We're able to take in the special presentations, make use of some of the special facilities, engage with profs informally. But we're actually administered out of KPR's alternate ed PCBS, or PACE as it's now called. That's kind of our administrative home, and we typically spend Fridays in town so we engage with local businesses and city government and so on. So as part of our relationship with Trent, we actually sit in on the first year environmental science class, and if they're successful in that endeavor, they actually get the first year credit. So they could be halfway through grade 11 with their first university credit, and it gives them a chance to learn from Trent's remarkably rich depth of professors and expertise, and get a sense of what it's like to be at university. So it kind of eases them into it. So here we are in one of the lectures, and this is a highlight for all of us. So I'm just going to speak to a few successes and highlights quickly here. I mentioned earlier, we're into our 6th year now. That's about 120 participants that have come through from, you know, all the schools you would have heard of: Tass, Adam Scott, Crestwood, PCVS, Kenner, as well as the Catholic schools have students from St. Pete's and Holy Cross, and some of the other outlying schools, but also significantly quite a number of homeschool kids get their start in public education through YLS. And it warms my heart to know through my follow-up that many of the students have chosen to pursue post-secondary in this field. And they check in with me, and I follow them closely. And of course, mentioned Malika earlier, has gone on to do great things. She's now one of Canada's sought-after youth climate leaders. Remarkable capacity she has, and I love following the students through like this. Over the years, gaining support and stature within KPR, which has been important. I'm not sure I can say I started with that, but certainly now, and I'm pleased now, and it was always my intent to try and draw these issues into more of a provincial and national context. I'll speak to more of that in a moment. And then I think significantly through with Malika, actually, we have actually nudged KPR. Here's the best kept secret of KPR. They're actually undergoing a climate action plan along with the city. So that's encouraging to know that there is a plan in place to not only say green those buildings, but I think perhaps more importantly and impactfully to actually create a thoughtful climate action education plan to make sure that all of our graduates are actually climate literate when they walk out of our schools. I have come to appreciate that I'm not sure we're going to solve this problem if we're not turning out young people who understand what's at stake, what's possible, and how we're going to get there. Because as we see with the moving political landscape, creating the right political space for this is so crucial. A success for sure back in 2019. Some of you were at this meeting, watched this meeting. A number of people spoke urging the city to declare a climate emergency. And among those were 8 YLS students who spoke passionately, and actually in some cases in tears, speaking to their fear of their future, urging the city to take the movement forward. And this actually followed a rally that the YLS class had organized. That's the bottom left photo there is in front of City Hall. Fridays for the Future, Greta Thunberg, and that's one of my students there up on the left speaking to council. So that was, I think, a really important coming of age experience for those 8 students in having their voice heard, and ultimately another rare success, perhaps. Now, of course, the next year class, they went back to city council and said, okay, if you declared a climate emergency, why didn't you put any money in the climate budget? Fair enough. Last year's class, or a year and a half ago, we were very fortunate to attend the COP15 Biodiversity Conference and actually present there and really get sort of our feet on the ground and trying to understand how these larger pieces work out in practice. So that was a really big, I think, step forward for the students to actually present at an international conference. They were terrified, but I think felt quite rewarded afterwards. And finally, some of you may have seen this video at Reframe the year before last, and I certainly want to acknowledge that 4RG and the Good Family Fund actually provided the funding for rewilding the classroom. And certainly I'll link this at the end. If you haven't seen it, I invite you to watch it. It's about 18 minutes. Tells the story, I guess the wireless story, but with the goal to really sparking conversations beyond KPR and getting other, especially formal education leadership to really think about what they're doing for environmental education. Where do we fit in? There's so many fantastic groups within our realm here, and some presenting tonight in May. But really what brings the program to life, and I really can't overstate this, is the community collaboration. So a number of you sitting in the Zoom here tonight have actually worked with the class, shared your expertise, brought things to life. And sorry, you're not all represented in pictures here, but Rosemary, Guy have been voices in our classroom regularly. I know Cheryl, your invitation is sitting with us. We like to engage with that. But I invite any of you to imagine how you might work together. Young people are up for any new challenges. Some of you might have events where you recognize the importance of a youth voice. You can reach out to us. Can't promise you. The kids are busy, and depending on what it is and the timing, we may or may not be able to do that, but it provides an opportunity for the young people to get their voice, to get their feet on the ground and develop some of those skills and confidence. A number of people have recognized the importance of engaging with our school board. It is one of the most difficult things to do if anybody's tried. So you can reach out to me and I can hopefully open some doors and connect you with the right people if you're trying to get some folks engaged that way. I have what I want to do, I'm going to go really quickly through here because I know we're just at the end here, just to give you a snapshot, and it'll be like a couple seconds per slide, just to get you the sense of what we do and the partnerships we work with within the city. So Camp Kawartha and Strawworks building the Camp Kawartha community, the health center. So sustainable building, sort of best practices environmental education with Camp Kawartha. Out at the solar farm and the London Street hydro facility, looking at the local context for renewable energy. We're up here, outdoor ed at its best, up on Stony Lake at the Kingfisher Retreat Center. Our classroom just moved outside for a few days. It was just wonderful. Workshop at Greenup, exploring some crucial community interconnections. Locally, we've worked with Alderville and Curve Lake around Manoomin in wild rice, typically in September, looking at the processing of it and understanding the ecological and cultural significance. Harper Park, looking at biodiversity attributes and threats. Always get out for some tree planting in town and out in Selwyn. Creating a rain garden here at Beavermead Park last year. And working with Lindsay Stroud and Sue Sauvé in the city of Peterborough to better understand the role of cycling infrastructure and getting people out of their cars and onto their bikes. YLS students become teachers at the water festivals, kind of throw them to the wolves. They get about 30 minutes to practice and away they go when they're working with young folks, but this is great leadership development and confidence building. Big focus on food up at the Trent Gardens. Lovely to see that first presentation. So we're regulars in the garden, looking at that sustainable food system and then chasing that down to the farmers market and working with. Here we are just this past fall in Jackson Park, I see Sam and Mark on the call here. One of the watershed stewards. That was a really beautiful physical day, lots of satisfaction there. And I noticed that Ted and Peter from the Ketchikomba Forest Stewardship Committee are on the call tonight. We've spent lots of time up in the forest working with ancient forest exploration and research on some of the science behind it, some of the metrics, but then ultimately understanding some of the issues around advocacy. As many of you would know, that forest is being logged or was being logged and threatened with logging. And we've had some beautiful time on the land in Ketchikomba. And just to close it out then, focus on Indigenous education sort of in different ways through our readings and field trips, understanding the role of innovation and how it's shaping some of the possibilities in front of us. This is pretty exciting stuff. This is actually the aquaponics site up in Young's Point that's producing fish and greens year round. Leadership focus, that's the most recent rally in the bottom left there in front of City Hall. A chance for young people to find their voice amidst the other community voices. And just a few logistics in case you're curious. There's a program cost, but we have financial assistance. Students have to be able to get themselves to Trent. That's one of the barriers we're working on. And application window typically is through the fall, but I've got next year's program now filled up. But if you know any young people, I've still got 1 or 2 spots. If you know any young people in grade 10 or 11 who might be interested, by all means, send them our way. So there's a short video here. I'm not going to show it. It kind of gives you a flavor of the program. And as I mentioned earlier, I invite you to watch the 18-minute documentary. So there's our coordinates, and I'm going to share these with Beth so she can share them out with the group. That's our website. All our field work we document on our Instagram page. I'll just say, really just a couple words just about the, I was asked to just link into our ongoing City of Peterborough Climate Action Plan update. Another great secret of our city. Not much has happened to really publicize this, but it started in September, and you should look for a draft plan that's going to move the city to net zero in 2050. Guy and I saw a plan that will take us partway to net zero, so they still have some work to do. They're looking for final city council approval in June or maybe July. But I will just throw this out to the group here. I anticipate we're going to need all hands on deck to move this forward. If we see the plan we need to in April, we're going to really have to work hard to create the political space for council to move that forward. And if we don't see the plan we need, well, we're going to have to dig in and try and, get some changes so that the plan that comes forward is the one we need. So I think it's going to be, I anticipate it's going to be a pretty challenging process to get this thing through to the finish line. So that's what I had. Oh, actually, I'll just finish with I throw this out to you as a thought. And I appreciate some of the ideas that Cheryl put forward and are looking towards optimism. We took a bit of a different tack in the class this year in response to the city's climate action plan, recognizing that this class would be finished by the time the public engagement really opens up. We created a series of videos that describe a city of Peterborough in 2044, 20 years after the city embarked on an ambitious climate action plan. And the idea here is to actually sort of create or imagine that city that's possible if we do things right, and imagine the benefits beyond simple greenhouse gas reductions that would accrue with the thinking that we might be able to engage some folks who aren't motivated by the fear of climate change or by greenhouse gases. So these videos are available. I'm just kind of getting them set up on our website. If you check back in a couple of weeks, I invite you to watch them or contact me directly in the meantime, and I can give you the link to them. But there's 11 vignettes that can, look at issues like transportation and food and buildings and public engagement and climate justice and waste. So there's to give you a sense of the kind of thing that we're looking at. So young people with smiles on their face describing with this beautiful city, and all of this, I believe, is possible. So let me just stop my share here. There we go. And sorry, I didn't have my clock running there, and I realized I went significantly over time, and I
Totally fine. That's fine. It's such an important thing that you folks are doing. Those videos that your students made were fabulous. Like I was so impressed. And Cam, I think you have the best teaching job ever. We're both retired teachers, and oh, so great, but you've done amazing, amazing things. My question is, I was actually talking to the superintendent of KPR at climate rally in the fall, and he said that KPR has this new climate action plan. So it would seem logical to me that your program would be a template for all high school students. Do you see your program expanding significantly?
Well, I'll share with you one line from the video, the Rewilding the Classroom, and it is true. Students sometimes wonder, what could the YLS program, evolve into if all the things fell into place. And I say my ultimate dream for the program is for it to disappear.
Exactly. So
because I think, to be honest, it's outrageous to think that students should have to leave a regular high school to learn about our ecological crises.
Yeah.
So I stepped out to do this, but now my whole goal isn't to have 20 years of YLS. It's to actually try to mainstream this. So, it doesn't make sense to have everybody go to school at Trent, but lots of the pieces of the YLS model can be absolutely mainstreamed. And it should be all ages, not just wait till senior high school, but it should be across the curriculum, as Beth, you would appreciate as well. So
I think there's some interest for our grandchildren on that topic as well, and would be a very interesting conversation to have with a few interested parties to figure out just how we make that happen.
Yeah, and I'll reach out as we move through. It's relatively an internal process so far at KPR. I think that they're going to breathe some. It kind of got started halfway through the budget year, so I'm hoping they breathe some budget into it in May, and I think hopefully really seeing it go public in September, to be closed out next year.
Good.
Yeah, when I look at, some of the programs in the past that have come through high schools, from co-op programs to, I forget the name of it now. Yes, where they're taking people and put them into workplace situations or community situations, and those things have become part of the program.
Yeah.
And the idea that what you're doing isn't part of the program needs to be rectified for sure. There was a question, you at least partially answered it. How do you get kids signed up?
YLS.green, and right on the home page, just scroll down a bit, there's a little button that tells you how to you of course should read what's on this website, make sure it's actually a good fit, but yeah, it's all done from the website, and you apply from the website. And I have probably 1 or 2 seats left for September.
Okay, and Guy says that the YLS videos are up on the 4RG website.
Right, yes.
To me, I've been listening to everything going on here, and I realize there's an awful lot of collaboration already happening among the groups who are on this call, and that's one of them, and with the Greenzine, we've published some of their material on the website. I think they're doing the same thing with us. So that's a form of collaboration that I hadn't even thought about when we started with this meeting.
Thanks for that.
Any other questions out there or comments?
Sorry, I apologize. For some reason, we've lost the video, so I'll turn it over to Patricia.
Yeah, it's me, Patricia. I am here, even though you can't see me. I think this is just great, this collaboration between like-minded organizations. And I especially commend Cam for involving young people so much, and Rosemary. That's just so important. But today, everything I'm reading says that the biggest threat to the climate movement is not climate denialism. Most people, know what's going on and accept that. But it is, it's the disinformation coming out from big oil and gas. And that disinformation then is being spread by big oil and gas's acolytes led by Pierre Oliver. So I'd like to know, how do you think that even by collaboration together, how can we best address that disinformation that is so influential, including to young people, and causes climate despair?
Good question.
Open to anyone to answer.
Easy question.
Well, I mean, I guess, Tricia, it's the job of really that's our job as educators, really, is to help young people develop the skills to wander through those mixed messages, and ultimately they can't all be true at the same time. And how do we decide which? And of course, it's even more complicated now with the development of AI. But we certainly spend time in YLS doing that. But I know lots of other teachers are doing that as well, trying to figure out, like, how do you know what sites you can believe? What do you look for, you know, in terms of suspicious messaging? But it's not easy.
I'd just like to say again, it's Patricia, this has been so inspiring to all of us. And I'd just like to thank all participants. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you to the presenters for all the coordinating ahead of time, for all your time and energy. Yeah, we couldn't have done this without all of you agreeing to volunteer and help out make this happen. Thank you to everyone in the audience who came, for sharing links, for your participation. Yeah, it's so good to be part of a community of people who are really working hard on this. All right, good night, everyone.